Aloha, everyone, and welcome to Class 3 of Astrology for the New Age of Aquarius. And as you all know, this class is based upon the book of Omraam Aïvanhov, who's right here, spiritual teacher, that gave his teachings from 1938 through 1985 and passed away in 1986. And this book is called The Zodiac Key to Man and to the Universe. And we're utilizing this book so that we're creating a resonance, a field of resonance through it. And as I said at the beginning of the classes, there's an enormous amount of resonances and overtones and what we call information that's in the book. So I encourage everyone to read this in a way in which you can deepen this extraordinary field of emanations, vibrations, and radiations that we carry within us. So let us start by connecting. And let us imagine this cross of destiny that each one is carrying. This cross of radiance of white light. And in this white light is contained all the colors, all the vibrations, all the overtones. So within our cross of destiny, we're carrying within us the seeds of the universe. And let us imagine through our breath the pulsation, this cross expanding and what we call contracting. So going from our center out towards the periphery and coming back in. So this cross is constantly expanding and then coming back into its center. So our cross isn't something that's static. Our cross is alive, filled with life force. So we're imagining this cross within us as we deepen our breath. And let us connect to the crosses of each one that is present now in this circle that we are forming. So these crosses now are all expanding and coming back into the center and creating this extraordinary tapestry mosaic of energies. And as we feel and connect to these multiple crosses, the multitude of crosses, of destinies that are constantly interweaving within the tapestry of eternity, we allow ourselves to go out and touch the very essence of Mother Gaia, the cross of destiny of Mother Gaia. And we feel this cross. We feel it interpenetrating all the multitude of crosses of every single living being on her. And this tapestry, this mosaic, this explosion of geometric light goes out even further. And as we allow ourselves to feel this expansion and coming back into the center of Mother Gaia, we allow ourselves to feel this movement of Mother Gaia, of this cross within the solar system. So the solar system also has a cross of destiny. It also is moving, pulsating, expanding and coming back into the center. And as we feel all the different beings that fill our solar system, all the different regions, we're amazed that within this multitude, this infinite number that we can't even calculate of destinies, they're all linked somehow. This mystery of connection. And we allow ourselves to deepen this connection and expand even further to connect into our zodiac, the perimeter, the limits of our universal consciousness. And we see that even the zodiac has a destiny, is carrying also a cross. And this cross is the very essence of God, Goddess. And our hearts are filled and overwhelmed with such gratitude. And we feel how much our own personal cross of destiny is touched by this infinite presence of creation. Mahalo, and welcome into our flow for class 3. So today what I would like to do is enter into the much more deeply into the cross of destiny that we just had a little bit of time to look at in class 2. And in this cross of destiny, we're going to expand upon what it is. So there'll be overlaps. There'll be overlaps as far as what we're going into. It will perhaps bring in things that you might not have looked at in the book, but as we say, that this isn't that important because this book, the Zodiac Keys to Man and to the Universe, we have that. We can always refer to it. And the second aspect that we're going to look into today a little bit more deeply that we did look at in the class 2 is planetary resonance, and we're also going to expand upon planetary resonance. And in that, we'll look into the different axes, and more particularly, perhaps we'll have enough time to spend with the axis of Aries and Libra and Taurus and Scorpio, which is extremely important as far as our incarnation and this passage into the Age of Aquarius. So this is an image from class 2. And first of all, I would just like to share my gratitude for my wife, Greta. And Greta, can you come over here so everyone can see you? She's going to come over, which is, I wouldn't say unusual, but she does it spontaneously. Okay, so now you're being seen. This is Greta, who's taken my scribbles and turned this into an extraordinary diagram in which we can penetrate into this cross of destiny. So thank you very much. So if you remember, this is an example when the sun is in the astrological sign of Aries. So from the time of March 21st, March 20th to April 20th, April 21st. And every day the sun goes through a different degree. There are 30 degrees in each sign. And by looking at this, we see that because of the Earth's rotation on its axis, there's every 2 hours, there's a different astrological sign that comes up on the horizon. So here in this example, in this graphic work, we see that at 6 a.m., hypothetically, let's say that's the time of sunrise. during this first 0 degrees of Aries at March 20th, 21st, at this 6 a.m., the astrological sign of Aries is coming up on the horizon, just like the sun rising. So the sun is showing us how these astrological signs come up on the horizon. So after that, obviously, since it's turning in a direction clockwise at 8 a.m., if you look at the 8 a.m., you'll see in the cross that Taurus is on this line of horizon. So Taurus is now coming up as the sunrise, etc., etc. So obviously everything's moving. So at noontime, when it's Cancer, if you look at noon, when it's Cancer that's coming up on the horizon, well, Aries, which was at the horizon at 6 a.m., it's in the position up on top of our astrological chart, the way we see it, in which I call a mandala of consciousness. So in that case, what we see is this fundamental movement that is creating this cross, enabling this cross to incarnate. This fundamental movement is made up of two specific energetic cycles. The first is the Earth rotating on its axis, which we call a 24-hour cycle, which is not a 24-hour cycle, but let's just say it is. And the Earth's passage around the sun, which we say every day the Earth moves 1 degree, which obviously, once again, it is not 1 degree. So why I'm emphasizing this is because these two movements are fundamental energetic cycles that enable us to penetrate into the cross of our destiny. So when we see this cross, which is made up of our rising sign, ascendant, descendant, opposite that, sunrise, sunset of our mandala of consciousness, and the midheaven, which is the noon of our chart, the noon of this mandala, and the nadir point, which is the midnight. These 4 points are extremely important for us. And the sign, obviously, in which the sun is found in is going to create this environment in which we're born into. So you could say there's 4 different environments for the Earth's consciousness. We have springtime, summer, fall, and winter. And we're going to see how these 4 states of universal consciousness for our Earth, how important they are. So, before we enter into this a little more deeply, I just want us just for a second, feel the energy coming from this diagram. Just look at it and feel the energy. Those of you that have done astrological work with me have known that I say, I send you your mandala, your chart, and I ask you, just look at it. Feel the energy communicated from it. Well, this is the biggest change for the Age of Aquarius that we're entering into. We're leaving, you could say, the limitations that the development of our mind and the embodiment of our individual ego, our individual consciousness has created. It has created a cross. Yet this cross now needs a different expansion. It needs to be able now to not necessarily be limited just to how we perceive things on the outside, yet it needs to now enter into a perception of an inner reality. And how we enter into a perception of an inner reality is through the energies that we feel, that we say. How do we receive those energies? Through our etheric body or ethereal body. And we know that this ethereal body is plunged in something called the astral light. We looked at that right off the bat in the first class. And it also is communicated that through the astrality of our being, in other words, our feelings. So this is the big transfer that we're all making. We're including this amazing opening of our hearts in regards to how we perceive the world energetically and how we feel the world through our emotions. We're including that in how we perceive the world through our thoughts. So when we look at a tree, immediately we have a thought form of the word tree. Yet there are some people that now are able to go beyond this thought form of a tree and receive the images and the energies of all the life force that is inhabiting the tree. They've gone beyond this mental concept of what a tree is. So as we're gazing upon this diagram, we're allowing the energies, we're imagining the rotation of the earth on its axis, 26,000 miles an hour. Can we even imagine that? 26,000 miles an hour. You know, in my generation, one of the greatest things was driving in a convertible and you could stand up and you were going, what, 70 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour? And what a rush! Unbelievable. Here we're talking about the earth, 26. And that is the slowest movement in which the universe in which we're plunged in, that we're living, the slowest. So imagine the speed. I think the speed of the earth revolving around the sun is at 50, 60,000 miles an hour. You see? Twice, almost three times. So as you're looking at this, you're seeing these two movements. And we're going to look into this much more deeply. So, what I would like to emphasize for this class right now, I'm going to read once again the first paragraph of this book. The first paragraph in which this whole course is based on. Because this is the absolute bridge. If we can open ourselves up completely to this thought form, which I'm going to read to you, we have everything that is needed to penetrate into not only our proper mandala of consciousness, but we'll be able to enter into the mandala of consciousness of others, not into their personal history, of course, but into their emanations, their radiations, their vibrations. We'll go further into the meditation in which we started, into everyone on earth, into the earth, and we'll expand out there. So, if you permit me, thank you. Initiatic science teaches that we live out our lives immersed in the ocean of fluidic matter known as astrolite. This fluid is so sensitive that it bears the record of everything that occurs in the universe. The most insignificant gesture, the slightest, most superficial emotion, every fleeting thought that goes through our minds are all recorded. According to esoteric tradition, astral light is an extremely subtle substance emanated by all creatures, from human beings, animals, and plants, to the rocks on the earth, and even the stars in the heavens. So, in one paragraph, Omraam Mikhaël Aïvanhov has linked up this immensity to the stars in the universe to our lives here on earth. And these two, macrocosmos and microcosmos, sont plongés in this astral light. Here we go, we're in this cross of destiny. And in this cross of destiny, we see these two movements that I've mentioned. If you look, we see on the inner circle our evolution, in which 2 hours each sign, 2 hours in the revolution of the Earth axis, the signs come up on the horizon. So every 2 hours, this circle is moving in harmony with the rotation of the Earth. And in the involution, this energetics that's going in the direction of the opposite direction of the clock, so in the direction in which the planets are moving, the Earth's rotation around the sun, we see that this evolution stays 7 years in each sign, and it corresponds to an 84-year cycle of the planet Uranus. So Uranus is our bridge into this cosmic reality of who we are. And since we're entering into the age of Aquarius, in which Uranus as a planet has a very important role to play, we're going to recognize now how these two movements, so this one that's 2 hours, the other one that's 7 years, how can we now work with them? This is the new astrology of the age of Aquarius. So, am I the only one to put this forth? Of course not. That would be an absurdity. So, I would like for us to pay attention to a man that lived a little before Omraam Mikhaël Aïvanhov. He was born around 1864. He passed away in 1926. His name, Rudolf Steiner. Many of you know who this man was or is. And Rudolf Steiner developed or was transmitted and presented a system of education that is known now as the Waldorf School of Education, because it was named after the place in which it was originated, in which it's all based on this 7-year cycle of how the soul incarnates and where it incarnates in physicality, in our bodies, and how it's received, how it moves. What is the environment in which we can give that will enable this to take place in the most favorable conditions? What is the role of the parents? What is the role of an educator in order to facilitate this passage of the soul as it incarnates in the different facets of a human being in incarnation? And he said that this movement is 7 years. And in those 7 years, there are important periods that take place. So even these 7-year cycles are incremented in other periods. So in astrology for the new age of Aquarius, how in the world do we connect with this? How do we connect? By looking at someone's astrological chart, mandala of consciousness, enter into the memory of the soul. In other words, this story that the soul is carrying with it. In other words, all its history, all its lifetimes, you see, all the lifetimes, and the particular choices that the soul made in this one. So once again, these two macrocosmos and microcosmos. So I would like to give an example of this. I'm going to give two examples. So the first one is taken from the life of Omraam Mikhaël Aïvanhov. And so once again, I'm just sharing a story. So this story I heard personally from him, and it's also it's written down in a book. So, but I'm still sharing it with you. So there might be changes. It might be my way of describing it. So this same story could be shared in many different ways. So at a very young age, he became passionate for the essential question, who is he? And what is the universe? So who is he as a being, as a what is his identity? And what is the universe in which this identity is plunged in? Passionate. And in this passion, he adored reading. So he tried to gather in, he came from a very poor family, but still he tried to gather in as many books as he could, passionate for reading. Well, unfortunately, when he was 16 years old, or unfortunately or fortunately, he became deathly ill. And during that time, he was at the verge of passing away, leaving his physical body. And his mother, who was a very gifted healer, tried everything possible. And there was no change, absolutely no change. And so in this state, he recalled that what he asked for, and the breath, the really weak words that he could utter were books. Please surround me with my books. Surround me with these books. And that's what his mom did. As absurd as that seemed like, she complied. And he said, that's when his healing began. Is that extraordinary? So for our thought forms to say that something inert that's there, even though it contains the wisdom, he's not able to read it. Yet it transmitted that. So when I am asking or requesting, or if you choose to, gaze upon your mandala of consciousness, your astrological chart, wouldn't it seem like the same thing is happening? Is it possible for our mental body, our thought forms, to relinquish this idea that we have to understand, that it's a requirement? It's an absolute requirement. If we don't understand mentally, we don't understand. This is the crossroads that all humanity is at. All of us. We're put in front of thought forms that are fueled by emotional realities that they have, because these thought forms are incomplete. They're not complete. So they need energy. Well, what do? We give that energy through our feelings, our emotions, and we give these energies through our actions. They direct our lives. So in that example, as we look at life, as we gaze into our astrological charts, our mandala of consciousness, we're receiving this history, this memory of our soul. It's inscribed. It's there, absolutely. And we're also receiving the choices we made before incarnating. They're there in the cross. absolutely there. And we're going to go into that more deeply. And so, how is this transmitted? They're transmitted through cycles of the soul every 7 years. Every 7 years, there's a perceptional reality that takes place in our soul that can deepen our relationship to ourselves and to the universe. And they're they're activated every 2 hours. Isn't that extraordinary? Isn't that amazing to know that this is happening all the time? And as we relinquish the limitations, we could use a very strong word, imprisonment of our mental body, of our intellect, and allow our intellect to serve other energies that are taking place. In other words, our soul evolution and the choices that we made before incarnating, our intellect can serve that. It's a choice. We can understand, we can penetrate more deeply into the thought forms in which the mental body is carrying. So the second example I would like to offer is I received an email, I think it was last week, from a man that's an extraordinary man. His name is Wayne Purdon, and I think he is on this class right now. And he's a writer. He's written several books. And he's just published a book called The 10 Keys to Healing. I downloaded it and I read it. It's very easily read. I read it in 2 or 3 days. It's absolutely extraordinary. I encourage everyone to buy this book, or to purchase it. It cost me $1.50. Can you imagine? And in that, he states right away that to be cured is not the goal. It's not the goal. He contracted leukemia, and he understood that to be healed, to be cured is not the goal. The goal is within this cancer, this leukemia, was that it was changing completely his life. And that he understood that to live this life to its fullest, he needed to change himself. And how he lived, everything. And he developed we received these 10 keys, he developed these 10 keys, and it's documented, it's supported by scientific information. It's just absolutely extraordinary. And what he is saying the most, I mean, Wayne, I absolutely don't want to put myself in between the readers in your book. I can say what I feel that you said the most. He's saying these insignificant things in life are truly what are healing us. Gazing upon the sun, walking barefoot on earth. These things are what's healing us because it's putting us into contact with life, with universal currents. Absolutely extraordinary. Thank you. Bless you, Wayne, for offering this to all of humanity. So I encourage everyone to develop this outlook to life. What's ever going on, whatever challenges that we're facing in life, these challenges are found through our cross. We need to carry our cross. Whatever challenges that we are carrying, whether they be mental, whether they be emotional, whether they be energetic, or whether they be in the physical plane. Look at the challenges that are going on in the Los Angeles County. Those are challenges. They're uprooting the lives of many people. Is that the only place that's going on? No. All over Earth, things like that are happening. Yet within that, the seeds of healing are planted. The opportunities to change our lives are planted. This is what we find in this cross. In this cross, we find these opportunities. Aha! Look at this one. The 3 crosses of destiny. So suddenly we understand, oh, well, the crosses aren't the same for everyone. Ah, what a revelation. In other words, you have many people living the same situation, and not one person is living the same experience. Now, in front of collective events, we're going to take a look at this cross of necessity. In front of collective events that are happening, like the fire in Los Angeles County, because so much of current humanity, I'm talking in the population, is still attached to the necessities of life: food, shelter, air, and water. And in these necessities of life, they're considering these necessities of life as something outside of them that they have to acquire. You see? That's the thought form. We have to acquire light. We have to acquire water. We have to acquire air, and don't even talk about how much earthly possessions that we need to acquire. So all in this cross of necessity is repeated experiences. We need to eat every day. We need to breathe air every what is it? 16 times in a minute. Our heart beats, the heart, the warmth, the circulation of blood, essential. So all these things we think are outside of ourselves. We have to acquire them, and we have to protect them. They can be destroyed. We can lose them. You see? Yet, as we plunge into this astrology to the age of Aquarius, and we plunge into the mandala of the consciousness, and we start to acquire little by little the memory of our soul, we realize we can't lose life because we remember all the different lifetimes that we've lived. And what is the result of that? Well, the result of that is that we start letting go of this attachment to the necessities that enable, absolutely, they enable our physical bodies to live. And as we let go of this attachment, we realize that it's the quality of these necessities that will create something that will be absolutely extraordinary for our lives. So there's a difference in the quality of food that we eat. There's a difference in the way we eat. There's a difference in the time we eat. There's a difference in how much quantity we eat, and there's a difference of when we eat. We start perceiving that. We start doing the same thing for water. We start going, oh, wouldn't it be better to drink something more pure than water that's filled with, that we have to add something to? Isn't it extraordinary to understand that the universe has provided that for us? We didn't have to invent water. It's there. And we'll never have to invent water. We'll never have to invent air. We'll never have to invent the earth. You see? So air is the same thing. Oh, wouldn't it be nice to breathe air that is not filled with other things? And then we enter into the light of the sun. That's a whole nother story. You see? The light of the sun, this light, is already touching the ethers. So you see in this cross of necessity that the 4 elements are there with ether in the middle. And it's the same for the other crosses. So we're going to enter into the other crosses. So as we start understanding that, as we start penetrating that, we enter into an entirely different cross. Now, I'll receive the information to do an astrological chart from someone that I've never met in my life. Never. I've never met them. And so I do that. Is it possible for me to feel and feel into these different levels through their astrological chart, mandala of consciousness? I'll answer yes, it is. Believe me, it is. And every one of you has had that experience in life. Every one of you has found themselves in different situations in which you've penetrated into the unseen universe. It might look the same on the outside, but suddenly you find yourselves in a state of consciousness. And as you pay attention to that state of consciousness, you can develop it. And you find methods in which you can. Now, these methods can come from outside research. You want to change your life. You want to change how you are. And so you start opening yourselves up into changes that other people have made, just like Wayne Purdon, who's given these 10 keys of healing. Did he invent these 10 keys? No, they exist. He just was able, from his experience, to offer them. And so all of us we have that ability. And as we look into our lives and we want to change, we realize, oh, we can cultivate that. And we start going, oh, as I cultivate and take responsibility for my inner reality, to the energies, the thoughts, the emotions, I start taking complete responsibility for that. It doesn't depend on something outside of myself. We enter into this cross of liberty. So what is this cross of liberty? Oh, it's a cross of movement and change. We start to change ourselves. Isn't that extraordinary? And we perceive change happening all the time. We're not seeing this repetition of experience going on, even though we still eat, we still breathe, we still drink, we still perhaps go to the same job or the same activity, we still have the same wife, or we still have the same friendships, and etc., etc. We still have the same passions. We're understanding that they are never the same. They move, they change. They're like water that comes flowing in through the stream. And in that gives us a knowledge of self and allows us to express ourselves collectively, amongst others. We leave the prison of egoic self. Isn't that extraordinary? And so that's what this cross is illustrating. So suddenly these elements stay the same. They're the foundation. They're the building blocks of our life, of incarnation. We can't live here in this physical incarnation without them. They become three. They become facets in which we can develop our minds, our intellects, our heart, our feelings, and our actions, our physical activities, our will. So the same cross, from becoming something that's repetitive all the time, becomes something that's extremely important. It becomes a cross of liberty. And then the third, as we become more and more free, as we embody these changes, as we enter into a communication within ourselves more deeply and with the universe around us, we enter into the third cross, the cross of providence, where we have the embodiment of our soul purpose in this lifetime. Not only in this lifetime, but in all the others. We see that there's a golden thread that's connecting our journey here through incarnational reality. And in that, we receive 22 divine expressions of God Goddess, which is represented by these cubes. There's 22 faces. So once again, the same earth, fire, water, and air, yet in that, suddenly we have this tetragram, divine tetragram of the name of God Goddess that's vibrating in the heart of these building blocks of our life. So these three crosses are what we have to develop. Yes, we need to occupy ourselves with our necessities. The second cross, yes, we need to open up to movement and change in our lives. There are things that we're carrying that need now to be renewed. They need to be healed. They need to come into a different age, the now moment in which we live. And then we need to now embody this extraordinary perfection of who we are. Isn't this extraordinary? So now, once we have these crosses, what happens? These crosses create, like a musical instrument, the ability to amplify resonance, just like a guitar, violin, cello, everything. And so what do they vibrate? Well, they vibrate the energies of the universe around us. They bring in this planetary resonance that we found out, and I will read to you once again that these planetary resonances are sounds. So if you permit me, I'll read this. So, and as each planet has not only its own particular color, but also its own musical note, and he goes through that. The symphony of sounds varies with each hour of day because of the successive presence of different spirits. So within this resonance, there are different spirits. Hallelujah. Through their song, the planets create the music that fills the vastness of space and is known as the music of spheres. Through meditation and contemplation, we can perceive this planetary angelic symphony, animated by the song of the angels. The universe lives, breathes, and nourishes itself. I don't know how anyone can write something like that in one paragraph. I honor that with every part of my being, not the man, the spirit that's come through. I find that absolutely uplifting to know that I live in the universe of sound and resonance in which angels are singing, and which in that my cross of destiny is serving as a means in which I can resonate that. I can play my piece of music and it blends in, it fills the universe. So another word for soul purpose is soul song. Now, I understood this at a very young age. How? I have no idea. When I started astrology, this is what I knew this. And so as a musician, I started my path of experimenting with it. So I put my chart up and I started playing music. And I started seeing that my mandala of consciousness, my chart, sang to me. And so then as I started doing this with other people, people requested that I do their charts. I started doing this with other people. I would put their chart up, I wouldn't look at it, and I would play music. And then I would play it for them, I would record it. And I understood that I was able to, not to say everything, a little tiny part of it, of someone's song. So we all have songs. We all have a song, let's just say a song, in which the angelic beings, the archangels, the divinities are the participants. And that we wrote. We wrote this. We're composers. Isn't that extraordinary? So we're moving through this and you'll have these diagrams. And in this diagram, we see how these vibrations come into our reality. And you'll have access to all these diagrams and we'll be able to see this is the astrology for the age of Aquarius. We'll be able to see how the planets sing. What is their song? And what have we prepared? What is the music that we've prepared? These are images. You can translate it into your language. What I've written down, though, what's written down and how it's presented is absolutely extraordinary. So here's another way of representing that. It's another way of representing how, through this movement of crosses, which we call houses, activities, sectors of our lives, organs in our body, call them what you want, activities, that these vibrations take place and different relationships happen. So in astrology and music, the same words are used. This is a way, this music that we're going to listen to is called respiration. It was written by the teacher of my teacher, Richard Kraft, a Bulgarian, and it's the last movement of the first part of this dance called the panarrhythmy, which is how we can connect to the movement of the universe, how we can harmonize, how we can align ourselves with that. And this is extraordinary because it's just a scale going up, a scale going down, and then a scale starting in the middle on what we call musically a third. So it's combining these two scales together in one. So I harmonize this music in a way to illustrate how this could become a possibility for us. So listen to this and imagine the breath of your soul and your cross moving. Thank you. This is just a representation. So this was done with synthetic instruments. Perhaps the heavens will grant me that I'll have musicians to be able to play this with acoustic instruments. a way in which these movements that we've been talking about and planetary resonance interact with each other. So our hour has flown by. And if you could put up the next diagram, please. We're just going to finish very briefly, and we're going to look at this in the next class, of astrological aspects. We call these planetary aspects. So how does this resonance interact in our physical reality? In other words, how do energies take place so we can have experiences? That's what we call astrological aspects. And we realized that the base of this was one of the fundamental things of an astrologer. His name was Dane Rudyard, who I mentioned in my introduction. That was absolutely extraordinary. He said that every single astrological aspect follows this blueprint of the phases of the moon. He understood this relationship of how things take place, how they go into fullness and then disappear, just like our breath. And so we're going to enter into this more fully. And so what would I like to pass on to you? So in this next week, if it's possible, to take time to penetrate into the activities of your lives, and especially in nature, if you have that opportunity, And through this experience with nature, allow yourselves to enter in fully into the physical experience, into what you're living, but then go much more fully into the unseen. And allow yourselves full reign. Give yourselves full permission. If it's 30 seconds, it's 30 seconds. If it's 10 seconds, it's 10 seconds. If it's 3 hours, hallelujah. If it's 24 hours, we're an exalted being. So allow ourselves this permission to live the unseen world in our physical activities through our incarnational process. And we'll enter into next week much more profoundly into the waxing and waning moon, into the different axes of destiny, how they interact, and into the triangles of Dharma and Karma. Ooh, that's passionate, believe me. Absolutely passionate. How through our incarnation, in our unconsciousness, we carry wounds that are asking for healing, and we carry qualities and seeds that are supplying that healing. Our Dharma and Karma aren't separate. They're there to support one another, like the roots and the branches and the flowers of a tree. So let us once again rejoin our consciousnesses and feel this cross. All three crosses. The necessities of our lives, the freedom and the liberty of our lives, and the providence, this divine expression that our life offers us. And we're just filled with gratitude on how much we're supported in this, and we're recognizing through our friends, through our breath, our physical lives, our friendships, our activities, our presence here amongst our community, our lives here on earth, and all the diversity that's extraordinary. We're recognizing how much we're supported. We're seeing how much creation is allowing us to continue our journeys lifetime after lifetime, where there is no beginning or end. There's a constant spiral of embodiment, of inspiration and creativity and realization and manifestation and this letting go and surrender. We see this natural process within us, and it just fills our lives with so much gratitude. I thank you all for the opportunity that you've given me to share my life experience, my life purpose, and I pray that you feel that I receive yours also. That this couldn't take place if there wasn't this circulation of all these different purposes that are interweaving. So I bless you all, and I wish you a wonderful week. And I'm so much filled with joy because instead of 3 weeks, I'm going to see you next week. How can one not be happy for that, to be in the presence of such exalted beings? So mahalo, which means thank you, and hallelujah, aloha.